What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the Hellcat Diaries. This will be episode 3 of the Diaries. And as you can tell in the garage here is my World of Tanks version, laughably, of the M18 Hellcat. At one time in this game, this was a very, very nasty tank. Many people drove this tank with great efficiency, dealing out gobs and gobs of damage. But I guess, I suppose, Wargaming, those nice Russian folks that developed this game, excuse me, dislike it. I don't know why. They used it in World War II. But there's a lot of neat things about this tank in real life. A real Hellcat. Now, it's not really that great on armor. It's actually pretty poor. But there's some interesting things that I've learned about the armor on the Hellcat. Like on the front, on the lower part of the hull, there are actually 2 plates along the front. And you can almost see it there. But you've got 2 lower hull plates. One sloped, I think, at 37 degrees. Where's my notes? Here we go. Yeah, one is sloped at 38 degrees, the upper part of the lower glacis, and one is sloped at 24 degrees. Well, whichever one is which. One plate is 38 degrees and the other plate is 24 degrees on the front. You can see it's slightly sloped, I think at 12 degrees on the sides. And then on the back, it's sloped. I believe it also either 38 or 24 degrees on the lower hull. The front part of the hull, it's sloped, but it's about a ½ inch thick plates, or 12.7 millimeters. And on the sides, it's something like 9 millimeters, or about a third of an inch on the sides. Now the hull, or the turret I mean, the front of the turret has a full inch of armor, but it's only sloped slightly. And then the sides of the turret, they're sloped at 12.7 degrees. I'm sorry, I'm not sure of the sloping on this, but it's got 12.7 millimeters of armor, or about a ½ inch on the sides. And I forgot to see what the rear armor was. But that's the armor. Now the thing about what made the crews that rode around in the Hellcat love it so much, not only the crews, but also the mechanics, and which you can't see by this rendering, but there's a plate on the back that opens up, comes all the way down to the ground, and there's a roller track built into this plate that they can disconnect the engine, which I'll get to the engine in just a moment, but they can disconnect the engine and roll it out on this plate to service it. Now the engine is a Wright Continental R975 radial aircraft engine. So it doesn't use any coolants. I think just oil and is all it uses. Which on some of the later versions of this, which you can't tell here hardly, but see how the back deck is raised? That is a version, early version, and they created the Hellcat first came out in 1943. By late war, this little hump on the engine deck was made flat, made flush, when they upgraded the coolant, or the oil coolant air mechanism, and they built it flush on the engine deck. Now the transmission can also be serviced. There's a plate on the front that you can drop down, and you can roll the transmission out the front to service it, which is another thing that made the mechanics very happy. It made it ease of maintenance on the tank very simplistic. As a matter of fact, a small 2 or 3 man crew can disconnect the engine, take it out and service it within a matter of just a few hours. So, you know, anytime one of these tanks went down due to mechanical problems, it wasn't long before they had it back up and running again. And one of the big drawbacks to the M18 tank, the Hellcat, is that it is an open turret tank, which in summertime is not so bad. And since it was not really designed to be a infantry support vehicle, which that is one of the big drawbacks to an open turret tank, is, you know, it's easy for snipers and for grenades and things of that nature to wound the crew. But even aside from that, the bad part about the open top turret was in the wintertime, since it was air cooled engine, a lot of times it would draw air through the crew compartment, and they quoted it as being like an armored refrigerator. So I mean, you would literally freeze. I mean, it was so cold when the tank was running. Now this tank is touted to run about 60 kilometers an hour, or I'm sorry, 60 miles an hour, or about 90 kilometers an hour, which really only happened one time in World War II, during the Battle of the Bulge, or was it the Bulge? No, the Battle of Bastogne, where they had, and I can't remember the name of the town, it starts with an N, but they had a small platoon of the Hellcats protecting that town. Well, the German army, the German armor, had one route coming in, and they were trying to take this other town, and they used the speed of the Hellcat to get there, which it ran at top speed from where they were at up to the other town to get there ahead of the Germans and set up a spoiler. Which that was the only time that it was really the speed, top speed, was ever used in World War II. The thing about this tank, it being lightly armored or basically not armored, is it was mostly used as a sniper tank. It could shoot and penetrate anything up to about 2,000 meters with its main gun, up to about 3.5 inches. Not just any armor, but up to about 3.5 inches. Uh, so their main thrust that they way that they used this was the shoot and scoot. So you would fire off maybe a couple of rounds in one position, pull back, roll out, reposition yourself to another point on the battlefield, and fire again. Well, this caused a lot of confusion with the Germans and really halted and stalled their advance. And during the Battle of Bastogne, they were able to pretty much win the day by using the high speed and maneuverability of the tank. Now in Wargaming, they have terribly nerfed this tank to where it's not even, I couldn't even call this really a Hellcat in anything but looks. It's got the gun, it's got the speed, forward speed, but it's not got the maneuverability that the actual Hellcat had. You try to turn this tank in World of Tanks, and you might as well be driving a Tog as quick as this thing turns, and its backward speed is laughable. But if you can get this set up into a good sniper position at distance of, maybe 1,000 meters, and you get good flanking shots or even rear shots, this tank can pin anything that it will meet. Most anything. But anyway, I don't know why I chose the Hellcat to be my weapon of choice in World of Tanks. I've played quite a few different lines. As you can see, I've got a German Tier 8. I've even got a Tier 10 E100 tank in my garage. I've got a bunch of Tier 8s. I got some Tier 9s. I've got everything, well, not every. I've got a lot of different styles of tanks from a lot of different lines. But I chose the Hellcat because I love the Hellcat. And anybody who's a fan of American armor probably has the same admiration of this tank. Plus, knowing how poorly it's nerfed by Wargaming, it provides additional challenge to have a good game in it. Which, if anybody has watched me play, you can see that I'm not a very good player. I don't boast it. I'm not a unicum. I have less than 50% win rate overall. But the Hellcat is the one tank I have played most out of all the tanks that I've had in this game. I've got over 500 games alone in this tank. Now I know there's people that's got more games in other tanks and maybe even more games than I do in this tank. But this is the tank that I personally have played the most in World of Tanks. I like it. I'm trying to master it. I'm trying to get better at it. I'm not pushing the issue. I'm just trying to improve my stats on this tank and learn how to play it more effectively. And that's kind of what you're following along with the Hellcat Diaries, is just to see if I can make improvements on it. And I'll pull up my service record with this tank real quick. There you can see I've had 557 battles. I have brought it up. I was down as low as 43% victories. So that has come up recently. and an average experience of 396. 43.81%. It's, as you can see, it's coming up a little bit. I've only survived 19.39%, and that's due a lot because it's a glass tank. I've got a low damage ratio. I got a low destruction ratio. My armor use efficiency is laughable. I've not, well, technically this tank has been equipped with a 105 millimeter after World War II. So, but it never was a World War II variant. Let's see, my experience is relatively low. Damage caused, damage received. I'm surprised there's nothing here on this tank for me. Number of times I've been stunned. Damage caused with my assistance is, everything is relatively low, as you can tell. Most tanks I've destroyed in a battle has been 6. I believe that match can be found in WWII replays if you decide to go look for it. My awards in this tank, I've got 1 mark of excellence. I'm currently setting at 60.85%. It's coming up slow. Like I said, I am concentrating primarily in World of Tanks, playing strictly the M18 Hellcat right now. I'm not playing any other tanks. I've got a few battle hero medals. I got a few honorary medals. I got 1 epic medal and several commemorative tokens. I'm not a fantastic player. I've said it and I'm repeating it. But that's because I'm playing it because of my love for the Hellcat. You know, it deserves to be a better tank than what it is in the game. But like I say, I think the people at Wargaming hate the tank for some reason because, I mean, they've even improved tanks like the E25, which I've got a YouTube video out with me not platooning, but working together with 2 E25s. Even as much as I hate the E25, I did work with a pair of them in a recent battle to win the game, which I really didn't do that much in the game myself, but I did manage to survive and help do a little spotting for the E25s, and we won the day. We won the battle. At one point, we were at least 6 or 7 tanks against 3 of us. But we all lived, and we won the game. But anyway, show you a few more battles here, and that'll be it for this episode. So stick around and see what kind of Magcap Hellcat mashups I can get into. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate y'all checking out my video. Let's get into some gameplay. What do you say?